The reign of the US dollar is over. Now the Chinese yuan is going to be the new world currency. This is what you see on the headlines right now. But is it true? We're going to take a little dive into it. Historically, the US dollar has been seen as a very safe currency. It's been the reserve currency of the world. Many central banks hold the US dollar, and it's the most common currency traded around the world. And this gives the US great power. One of these advantages the US dollar has is foreign exchange control. So if the United States could say, hey, we're going to put sanctions on the country, we're no longer going to allow that country to buy the US dollars or trade in US dollars. And once that country runs out of US dollars to trade for products, then they can no longer trade because most of the world trades in US dollars. So when we run out of US dollars, other countries may not accept other currency. This will make it very, very difficult to trade. One example of this is Russia. They have been sanctioned by the United States, so they can no longer get more US dollars. So now they have to trade other currency, the Russian ruble and mainly the Chinese yuan, because Russia is out of US dollars. So China is trying to convince other countries to trade in yuan to make that much more of a common form of currency. Many countries have agreed to this, including Pakistan, Brazil. They all have talks and a few other ones to trade more in the Chinese yuan. This will benefit China because then currency is being used more and traded around the world, be more trusted, and gain more influence in the world. And that's the general idea where people think that the US dollar is at the end of its time and the Chinese yuan is now going to overtake the US dollar as a world currency and a very traded currency. In order to consider a world reserve currency, you have to be held by reserve banks all over the world. Currently, the Chinese yuan makes up 2.1% of currency that's being held in world banks all over the world. Compared to the United States, it's 60% of the cash held in reserve banks is US dollars. A big difference. And when you look at how much Chinese dollars is being traded as a percentage of world trade, it's 2%. The US dollar is 41%. In reality, the second most traded currency is the euro at 36% roughly. Three things the banks have to consider when they're looking to hold other currency in their banks is currency risk, credit risk, and liquidity risk. Credit risk is the chance that a country may not pay back its debts if they default on their debt. What this means is if they can't pay their bills, then essentially that currency cannot be trusted. So they need something that can be trusted and backed by a government that's reliable. Two is currency risk. What's the likelihood of that currency will lose value over a short period of time? There's no point of holding cash from a country, all of a sudden knowing that that currency is now worthless. So banks do not want that. They want to be able to hold their value as much as possible. The last one is liquidity risk. If I want to sell or exchange that currency for either goods or services, how quickly can I do that? How quick and easy is it for me to change that one currency to another? Think of J.G. Woodworth. It's my money and I want it now. That's what banks think. Hey, if I need to exchange this for something, how quickly can I do it? Quicker, the better. The United States government is generally accepted that they will not default on their debts. It is very easy to trade from the US dollar to another currency or find another country who's willing to accept the US dollar. And the US dollar will not significantly decline in value over a short period of time when compared to other currencies. So banks all over the world trust the US dollar. How does this compare to the Chinese currency? Well, the Chinese government has a history of not paying their bills when it comes to a foreign country. They're also known to manipulate the value of their currency, making it value less than it actually should be. This gives advantage to the Chinese economy, making their goods cheaper, as well as prevent their citizens from buying goods from other countries. And because of this large amount of control, a lot of banks don't like that. They don't like that unpredictability that the Chinese government can just change the value at will. And not many countries accept the Chinese yuan. It makes a very small percentage of trade. So it's very hard to trade with other countries in the Chinese currency. So there's a big difference between the US dollar and Chinese currency, a huge gap. And there's countries, yes, that have been saying they're willing to consider trading in the Chinese yuan, but that's what it is consideration. And if they do, it's simply in very small amounts. So say I look at Russians, figure out why they're using the Chinese currency and not their own. Well, one, they can't use the US dollar, so they have to find an alternative. Their currency has taken a very hit and lost a lot of value in recent years, but the Chinese yuan is holding their value better than the Russian ruble, and they are able to trade large amount of goods with China. But it's still not an ideal currency, but Russia has no other choice. It's still a better option than the Russian ruble. So what's the TLDR of this? Is the US dollar at the end of its dominance? Well, no, not by a long shot, and especially not by the Chinese yuan. In actuality, there's more threat from the euro taking the spot of the US dollars than there is from the Chinese yuan. Long term, yes, the Chinese yuan may get there one day, but not anytime soon. And there are countries who are looking to diversify from the US dollar. They're typically looking at the euro and not the Chinese yuan. And if you like that, I have plenty of other videos playing business topics. Hope to see y'all next time.